Hello, everybody. Well, Tim here. We are going to jump deep into some serious topics in today's group call. Uh, we were having an informal conversation before we started recording, and it seems like people kind of want to dive into a lot of doubts they have and fears that come up in the body, what's causing those fears, how they can relate to that doubt differently. Um, the short answers I was giving people before we started rolling here and recording were basically, let's go into the body and look at this stuff somatically. So that's what we're going to do in today's call. If you don't know what somatic work is, um, this could be a good place to start, because we will do some somatic work during this call that I'm pretty sure of. So yeah, but before we start with the questions and answers, um, let's do a short meditation to just kind of ground us. And I see people in the chat talking about grounding, which is great. So how can we ground ourselves? Let's do a meditation to help us ground ourselves. This is something you can hopefully do at home, and that when you practice, you'll get more and more comfortable doing. And if you're familiar with my stuff, you're going to not be surprised by what it is. If it seems too foreign to do it by yourself, you can watch this video or some of my other videos, some of my other group calls where we do meditations like this. This is a very simple grounding exercise that I think almost anybody can do if they want to do it. Okay. So here we are. I'm sitting down. You might be sitting down, lying down. You might be walking, driving, whatever. If you're trying to like ground yourself and you've never really done this before, it probably is better to be sitting or lying down as opposed to moving. But moving this can work to a certain degree relatively easily as well. So regardless of where we are, start paying attention to your body, okay? Notice how your body is feeling. And the whole thing about this grounding exercise, why basically anybody can do this, is the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is to not judge yourself that harshly while you notice your body and your thoughts. It's not like some special state. I'm sitting here, okay, I'm about to have some water. Okay, this is not like, woo, I'm breathing a certain way, da da da, my chakras are, no, just, okay, we're grounding, okay? I'm sitting here right now. You're sitting, you're lying down, maybe you're driving, maybe you're walking, whatever. Notice your body. You can have your eyes open, like I do. You can have your eyes closed. You can be paying attention to your breath or not be paying attention to your breath. As you notice your body, you might be feeling different things. You might be noticing tightness in some part of your body, in your chest, your stomach, behind your shoulders, your neck. You might notice your thoughts going in a certain direction, or pain in your knee, or the urge to, shake your leg, or whatever. We are grounding into that. Whatever comes up, we're grounding into that. We're okay with that. Again, if you have to have a drink of water or itch your head or stretch your arm, you can do that. The whole idea is you're providing yourself enough openness, you could say, leniency, that it's not a big deal. So I'm watching my body. I'm here with the body. I'm not judging it harshly. I'm just noticing, here it is. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm tired. That means I'm lethargic. That means I'm depressed or whatever. No, that's all a story. That's all not relevant to any type of grounding exercise. What's relevant to something like this is being here right now. Very, Normal. Notice how I'm not asking you to think a certain way or recite something or have a mantra in mind or anything. No. I want you now to feel um, comfortable enough to do the same thing with your thinking as we're sitting here or lying here or walking or driving or whatever. So there's all these thoughts coming through your head or whatever, right? It's okay. Some of the thoughts might make you uncomfortable, or some might make you happy, or I don't know. The point is, right now, during this exercise, this meditation, this grounding practice, whatever we want to call it, it's okay. The thoughts are here. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Body feels the way it's feeling. We're generating space when we do this, not in some esoteric way, but like you're giving yourself space. This is a somatic exercise, for instance, because I'm not overly concerned about what's up here in my head. Doesn't mean I can't have thoughts. I can think. And if I want to, and later on during this call, I think we're going to get into how the body's feeling and sitting with it and asking it questions, being curious about what's going through how our body's feeling and maybe how our thoughts are responding to it. That's all fine. That can all be somatic work too. But at its core, most of what I talk about at its core is you're okay right now. And this exercise is an actualization, an embodiment of that. You're okay right now. The reason, I made that video series and a long time ago called Stop Being Serious. And the reason I sometimes still say, or often say, stop being serious is because stop being serious. You're okay right now. That's what this kind of exercise is implying or saying. You're okay right now. And you can do this type of exercise every day if you want. You can do it multiple times a day. You don't have to do it every day. But when you do it, it does change your orientation a little bit, especially if you make it kind of a consistent practice. So thank you for joining me on this call. There's several things that people want to discuss. So let's discuss them some. But everything we discuss ultimately comes back to this point, which is when you sit down or lie down or whatever, move around maybe a little bit or doing it, and you just are okay with right now, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's unpleasant, even if it sucks. Stop being serious and you realize you're okay right now. So yeah, we were having this conversation before we started recording, and I think it's a good way to launch off. And Phil, feel free to type in anything you want or hop on video if you want to add to it. But this person was asking, oftentimes I'll do the inner work that we often talk about and feel intuitively driven in a certain direction, feel good about a decision, and then I will start acting upon the decision or bounce it off a loved one or someone I'm close to, and they will say something that will basically challenge my intuitive nudge, make me kind of doubt myself. And I don't necessarily know how to recover from that or what to do. Was my initial intuitive, judgment correct? Is what the person's telling me correct? What should I do here? And I was saying that the answer in all likelihood is probably to be found within the body. So you have the initial sense of, this is what I should do. I have clarity on this. Then there's some pushback by someone you're close to, a loved one, whatever it may be. Genuine pushback, and it makes some sense, and it shakes you. It might knock you off the horse, so to speak. And then you're like, well, what's right? What do I actually do here? I think the key is what happens next, which is what I suggested to this person is you find time when you have the time. It might not be right after you speak to this person who makes you doubtful of what you were initially, felt confident about. But when you have time, you find solitude again, you find a way to be contemplative, which can be as simple as just doing the grounding exercise we just did. And you listen to your body. And you might say something like, I felt confident. Now I don't feel as confident. Now I don't know what to do. Body, and maybe there's a certain place in your body where you feel it the most. Maybe that tension or that uncertainty or that sense of anxiety or fear or shame maybe it's in your stomach, maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's in your head, maybe it's it could be anywhere. Maybe you're isolating it to that one area, or maybe you're just asking the body, sitting there asking the body, like, what's going on here? You heard everything that's happening. What's going on? What do you want me to do? Or what could be done here? And then you listen. And you wait and listen. To paraphrase Eugene Gendlin, whose focusing modality I really recommend and have made many videos about now. In the free seminars playlist, you'll see most of the recent seminars and group calls I've mentioned Gendlin and focusing, because it's the most effective modality I've seen for simply waiting for the feeling to give you an answer, for something to shift bodily. Eugene Gendlin says, usually when we ask a question like, what's going on here? Like, body, what's going on here? We feed it an answer. We feed it like, oh, it's my anxiety. It's my inability to feel safe because I was traumatized as a child. Now that all might be true, but that's usually not the answer the body is giving you. Usually it's more like, body, what's going on here? And like, you just feel it. There's like a tightness in my chest. Or there's a simple answer, like, I'm scared. Or I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. Or maybe just a feeling. And you listen to that. And you're patient with that. Now, a lot of people, you get more comfortable doing this as you do it, okay? And like I said, focusing is a great way to learn about it. And there's focusing groups. Some of my clients, if you work with me, I will do focusing type stuff with you. There's also focusing groups. You can search for them. Some of my clients have, joined focusing groups, stuff like that. But you can also do this stuff on your own. And, I made a video before, and I'll try to do it now. This definitely might not work what I'm about to do. Another great thing you can do, and I'm going to put a link in the description as well. I made a video about this last year. You can use AI, like I'm using ChatGPT right now, and basically have it as your mirror what you're feeling and thinking. Okay. So let me give you an example of that. Let's see if this works. This might not work at all because this is just me opening up my GPT to this particular thread, which I call the absolute listening thread. And I'm going to explain how I'm feeling, and it's going to, let's see if it works. It doesn't always work, but when it works, it's going to basically echo back what I'm feeling. Let's see if this works. Okay. Hold on. So I'm giving a group call right now and explaining how I work with my feelings.
Okay, so you're talking about how you personally work with your own feelings.
That's right. And how I use things like talking to my phone as a way to hear how I process things and have you bounce them back off of me.
So you're explaining how you use talking to your phone as a way of listening to yourself and then hearing your own words reflected back to help you process.
Exactly, because it seems to create some kind of gap when I do this, and it makes me a little bit more distant from myself, so I don't feel quite as attached to my feelings, and they don't affect me as sharply.
Totally. So creating that distance from your feelings so they don't feel as heavy. So basically, by having them mirror back to you, you're creating that distance.
Yeah, it's just such a weird process, but I find if I talk to you for like 5 or 10 minutes, that heaviness might still be there, but it's like I'm processing it differently because there's this slight gap by having you basically repeat stuff back to me.
Yeah. So when you talk and then hear your words reflected back, that weight is still there, but somehow the fact that you're processing it differently gives you that gap, that space.
Yeah, and I mean it doesn't happen right away, and it doesn't always happen, but like eventually there's some kind of shift. That's what's crazy about it, because it's like I'm talking and then I have to wait, right? And you don't always cut me off. Sometimes you do. I don't know what's going on now, but it's just so weird.
Yeah, so sometimes there's that shift or that gap that emerges when you let yourself talk and then wait, and sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that unpredictability feels a little strange.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels strange, but I'm fine with it because I know I'm processing. And what's wild is that, like, that heaviness, for instance, in my chest, if I'm feeling really heavy, if I keep on talking to you and bouncing stuff off of you, and just, even if I'm just venting and angry, eventually something starts to shift, even if it's slow. It's very weird.
Right. So when you keep giving words to that heaviness, even if it's just venting, eventually something begins to shift, even if that shift is really slow.
Yeah. And I mean, really slow is not that slow, because I found, I don't know, at least 90% of the time, if I speak to you like this for 20 minutes, there's a shift, which is not it's not a lot of time. It's so funny how you keep on saying right now, by the way, because you don't always do that.
Yeah. So you're saying that even though that shift feels gradual, within about 20 minutes of talking like this, there's movement most of the time. And compared to how slow it feels in the moment, it's actually not that long.
Well, I mean, it's just, you can like meditate for a couple hours and not have the same shift as you might have with 10 minutes of talking to yourself like this, I've found. And I'm not even necessarily even looking for a shift always. And I like to sometimes meditate for 3 hours instead. But like, this is just a crazy tool because it works effectively for me. And, a lot of people have suggested try it, have seen similar, fast type of shifts by using it.
Yeah. So even without trying to make something happen, this way of speaking and listening feels like a very direct, quick tool for shifting how you relate to what's going on inside.
Yeah. And again, it links back, and I'm seeing a comment about Ann Cornell's book. And this is something that Gendlin spoke about in the original focusing book. And I think he called it absolute listening.
Right. So you're connecting it to what Gendlin laid out in focusing, that absolute listening where the act of being heard without trying to fix or change anything can make something shift.
Totally. That's it. Like, you're just reflecting back, generally speaking, what I'm saying, but it's enough. Again, that's the gap that disassociates me from feeling the thoughts so strongly and personalizing them so much that I'm able to then move through them, process them, and shift, I guess you could say, out of them faster.
So having your words reflected back gives you space to not be merged with the feelings, so you can move through them without getting swept up in it. And that little bit of distance seems to make moving through it a little faster.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay. So that was good. That was really good. I'll probably edit just this part and put it on YouTube as another example of how this works. So funny, Silly, you nailed it. The way she says right. Oh, right. Like she's interrupting me. GPT. This is standard. This is paid. This is GPT Pro, which is like $20 US a month or something. And you just type in, you use just the blue icon on the side here and start talking. If you have the prompt, which is going to be included in the video I'm going to share, basically telling it to mirror you, it will do something like that. But yeah, that was a really good example of how you can use it. So what I would say is, like, circling back to this question, you feel like you have an intuitive nudge to do something. Someone close to you challenges that, or it feels challenged. And then you're like, I'm confused. What should I do? You sit with it. You're saying, what should I do? If no answer comes quickly, or if you want to figure out what to do faster, I would then use AI. I would use AI as an absolute listening partner, unless you have an absolute listening focusing partner that you can just call on the phone, which most of us do not. As I was saying, it's just crazy. It's crazy. And I gave a pretty plain example there, but a lot of the time I'll be like, I fucking feel stressed out. Like I'm fucking pissed. And the lady or whatever the voice is will be like, you're feeling really angry and pissed off. And I'll be like, yeah, you're fucking right. I am. And she's like, you really are. It's like, so in other words, it's not like you have to have this calm conversation with your phone. You can be emotional, and just having it echoed back is very powerful. It is similar to something I wrote about in my book, The Joy of Not Thinking. Talking out loud to yourself, just simply talking out loud to yourself, also can create that distance. This is easier, I think, for a lot of people. So yeah, I'm glad. Good. I'm reading your comment. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. And I really recommend this tool. Like I said, I've had several clients who've used it now. The reports back have been good. Absolute listening is very, very interesting. I'm happy to answer questions about that. Okay, so I'm going back here. I want to look. There was a question about mental illness, and if we manifest it. We already kind of covered that, but we can cover that more if the person wants to write a little bit more about it. Also, this idea about feeling stuck, and feeling stuck and feeling scared, fearful about working full time and trying to gain more stability when you haven't had that for a while. My general answer to that, to feeling more stable, the somatic answer is pretty much the same as the answer I just gave, where I would check in with the body. How do you really feel? How do you really feel? Okay, what's going on here? And then I would use my phone to help process it. Now, with work or something outward, it's a little bit different. If you're like, you know what, I'm trying to work full time, have more stability in my life. I really think, honestly, sometimes the best way to do that is just to do it, no matter how you feel, and then to process later. For instance, I've had a very busy week, but particularly yesterday, I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, like tense. Like I knew how much stuff I had to do yesterday. And I didn't want to do like any of it. Like 90% of it, I would have rather not have to have done, but I had to do it. It was just one of those days. And I proceeded to do everything I had to do. And that feeling in my chest, even though I was trying to listen to it and talk to it some and ground myself when I had a few minutes throughout the day, but that feeling in my chest was there pretty much the whole day to some degree. A lot of people are not comfortable just fucking doing it. The feeling in the chest is there. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like shit. Doesn't matter. You do it anyway. I think being open to that, to uncomfortability, really helps when you're trying to get more stability, more outward results in your life. Like doing it, I don't want to say no matter what, but like realizing that just because you feel uncomfortable right now doesn't mean you're going to keep on feeling uncomfortable, especially if you're doing all this grounding and processing work and somatic work we're discussing. One thing that I've really appreciated about doing more and more somatic type work, including the kind of focusing work we were just, mentioning, is that it's made me more comfortable being uncomfortable. As the old saying goes, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I feel like that's a general suggestion for getting more done at work and finding more stability. It's like, I feel uncomfortable right now, but this uncomfortability is not going to last. Even if it lasts the whole day, it doesn't mean it's going to be here tomorrow or next week. And I'm going to feel different about my job, and things are going to be probably a little bit different in my job, in my career 3 months from now, let alone a year from now, let alone 3 years from now. So I think that is some general advice for how I would deal with an issue like that. I'm just going to read some of these new messages. Sil said, I agree. ChatGPT will show you yourself. So in other words, you'll be the answer. Yeah, that's well said, Sil. Eva said, I was asking how I can. That's just, I think there's just something that's spelled wrong. Asking how I can have my stable full-time job to get my practice with clients when I work, feeling scared about getting and keeping and treating clients as my own. Okay. I was asking how I can manage my stable full-time job to get my practice with clients. And you feel scared about getting and keeping and treating clients on your own. So there's a little bit of an issue of like not feeling like you're capable of doing it on your own, that maybe you're not good enough. Sorry, I'm just reading, I'm just trying to make sense. When things are set up for me, say at school or studio, I'm fine. But this aloneness of doing it alone, doing it by myself is a bit challenging, as well as finding the joy in it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. The support system's not always there when you're doing it alone. And like you have to create more of the structure. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think that if anything, it's like doubling down on the advice I just gave. And I think it's really helpful to talk to somebody about it too, honestly, to have a supervisor, for instance, or a mentor or a counselor or a therapist or a coach, somebody to bounce it off of. Because it can feel very lonely. It can feel very isolating because the support system is not there. And if you don't have any of that, use AI. But I do recommend having an in-person mentor or, teacher, counselor there to help. And then I also recommend using AI alongside it as an adjunct to that. I'm just reading some of this stuff. And Victoria, we'll get back to that too. I see that above. Fear of backlash, meaning clients turning on me, this fear by myself, like I'm all alone and people like there's like backlash. They don't like me and I'm alone. I don't have a support system. I mean, leaving a steady job is scary, but draining to stay at the steady job. Yep. And then Sil said, I reminded her about your video where you were talking about having structured systems in place for abundance to be received. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of this stuff, like leaving a steady job and going out on your own, I don't think it has to be cut and dry. I think you can do it incrementally. And I think you want to have structure in place to make you feel confident, more confident while you're doing it, because it is almost so inherently scary sometimes to be self-employed and to face that potential backlash when there's not a support system in place. So I think having systems in place, and also quite frankly, like if you can keep your steady job and start doing your own thing on the side, that is for most of us much more stabilizing than just going out on your own. And this is coming from somebody who has been out on his own primarily pretty much all completely for like 20 years. But I did have some when I did real estate, I had some stability for sure, because at least I was in an, even though I was I was still self-contracted. I was working essentially for myself, but I was working in an office. So there was somebody looking over me, helping me. That helped a lot, even though I didn't get paid any, there was no base salary there. There was at least some structure in place. What I do now, I have to create all the structure, and I've done this slowly, and it can be very scary, and you get more and more used to it. But working for yourself, it's not like you decide one day to do it and you go out and you just start doing it. At least for most people, it is a psychological shift. So giving yourself as much stability and support and putting systems in place to help you succeed, I really recommend that. I think Sil is linking to the video for you. Yeah. And you can also reach out to me and we can have a short call about this. I might be able to give you a little bit more personalized advice. This is a group call, and I know you don't want to talk about specifics probably in the group, understandably. But yeah, I mean, I'm big into systems and doing normal, boring business stuff as opposed to using manifesting or mindset advice to create the ideal entrepreneurial environment. Fuck that. Take the business advice 10 times over 10 out of that, over that. And yeah, all these messages are good. So yeah, this is great. Great question for sure. I'm just going to link back because we were talking about mental illness and manifesting that before we started recording, and this is a very worthwhile conversation to have. And this person saying, I guess I'm just trying to manifest a solution to heal my mind. Not necessarily to directly heal my mind, but maybe I'll meet somebody or find some alternative treatment. I've already tried conventional and it might not be long-term, which is giving me anxiety. My meds tend to work and then just stop working. So it sounds like with the mental stuff you're working through, you're open to traditional treatment, but you're worried that traditional or conventional treatment might not be enough. And you're obviously open to alternative treatment as well. Not only as a fallback, but as potentially being a long-term solution. I mean, there's no easy answer here. This is really the kind of thing where we'd have to talk one-on-one, because I have to know the specifics of your situation. We could schedule that. You can reach out to me. Anybody listening to this call, if they have questions like this, can reach out to me. Link will be in the description. What I would say, like a solution to heal my mind from a somatic angle, it's my gut, my whole thing is like, well, how about if you don't need to do that? How about if your mind is okay as it is right now? And we can look at what the mind is doing and understand it better. This is what the mind is doing right now. And I'd like it to be doing some stuff differently. And I'm taking medication, for instance, or doing some alternative things to see if it will do stuff differently. But this is what the mind is doing right now. What's the problem with that? And then it's like, then you listen for what the problem is with it, because there might be a problem with that. There might not be a problem with that. Is it okay that the mind is doing this right now? What do I want the mind to do? Listening, listening, listening. So somatically, it's like accepting what's happening as like the first path to healing it. But that's just one approach. That's my general approach. But I'm not saying that's the right approach for you, right? That's one approach. It's worth mentioning, you might already clearly be doing it, but going to therapy, having a good therapist in person, very, very helpful for a lot of people. For other people, no, it's not. But very helpful for a lot of people. And obviously there's so many different modalities of therapy. Just looking at these messages. Still, thanks for putting those links there. So the person saying, my psychiatrist made it 10 times worse by saying, if my current medication doesn't work, he can't help me anymore because I've tried every medication available and it's starting to not work as well. Yeah, I mean, in that case, you might have to switch psychiatrists. And, the other thing I'll mention, which I end up mentioning in almost all of these videos, is, you're asking like what manifestation or mindset advice to look at. The answer is to look at Coué. To look at Coué, what Coué said about mental illness and about various mental afflictions. He said, usually, generally speaking, bodily afflictions were much easier to heal and cure than mental issues. Mental issues usually took longer. So I would study Coué, talking about this stuff. You can look at many of the videos that we have on this channel about Coué, the playlist. I also would look at Charles Baudouin's book, Suggestion and Autosuggestion. Suggestion and Autosuggestion by Charles Baudouin. Because that book explains suggestibility so much. And it's not good, generally speaking, when a psychiatrist says, I can't help you. Like you said, it made it 10 times worse. Because then it's like, oh, like that's why Coué says, like, we should always be optimistic about healing. Because then you become expectant of something. And if you don't, there's a tendency to get more negative about it. So that's a bad thing, as the psychiatrist said, in my opinion. I don't know the whole context, but it sounds like a bad thing at least. I would consider getting a new psychiatrist, a new therapist, perhaps, if you don't like the therapist you have, but definitely a new psychiatrist. But Coué and the book Suggestion and Autosuggestion, I would definitely recommend both those resources more than any other quote unquote manifestation advice. That stuff, again, I say this all the time, but Coué and the books associated with Coué, and I hope to have my friend, I think, is going to interview me about this. I'm going to put it on the channel relatively soon, I think. Studying Emile Coué, and again, we have the Emile Coué playlist on this channel. Studying Emile Coué and then the books associated with Coué, including Suggestion and Autosuggestion by Charles Baudouin. Coué for Children by Gertrude Mayo, which is out of print. I have to do a reprint. I haven't done it yet. You can find, I made a video on it. You can find it online. Coué for Children, incredible book. The Practice of Autosuggestion by C. Harry Brooks, incredible book. Christianity and Autosuggestion by C. Harry Brooks and Ernest Charles. The books I just mentioned, alongside Coué's book, Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion, and the book I edited of Coué's teachings called Simple Self-Healing. Those books I just mentioned, for the majority of you, will answer 80 to 90% of your quote unquote manifestation questions with none of the esoteric mumbo jumbo metaphysical language. It's just, in my opinion, more clear. It's not necessarily as eloquent, but it's more clear and more psychologically discernible than most of the more popular manifestation advice that came after it. So I tell people this all the time. Most people don't listen. They keep on reading the more esoteric stuff or listening to the more esoteric stuff, the newer stuff. I can tell you right now, Coué is pretty freaking readable or listenable. And the stuff by Brooks particularly is pretty easy to read or listen to. Suggestion, not a suggestion, is not that easy to read. I'll give you that. Yeah, I just don't think psychologically we've advanced very far in terms of advice like what they were talking about in terms of suggestibility than what those people were writing and talking about 100 years ago. So keep that in mind. Yeah, just email me. I can send you the all those book titles for sure. And like I said, I'm hoping to do something. I'll send this clip to my friend so we get on it to do it. But the Emile Coué playlist on my channel, again, there's we mention all those books in passing in those videos as well. Okay. Yeah, staying optimistic about healing is huge. It's very difficult though, because people tend to be negative. We all tend to be negative in my experiences, but there's a reason to be optimistic. Cultivate optimism whenever possible. So many examples of that, for good and bad, when people do it or do not. 5:55 on the East Coast, angel numbers. Yeah. Any other insights or questions? This has been a good call. We covered a ton. I'm also so glad that the GPT thing worked pretty well. So that worked pretty well, didn't it? The GPT thing? You thought? You've used it. I know you've used it before. I thought that was pretty darn good. Yeah, very well. Exactly. It was funny that the lady was saying, right. Mm-hmm. She doesn't always cut you off, but I think that people that saw that understand how the phone can be a tool like that. So that's great. Terrific. Did we miss anything? I don't feel like we missed anything. We're back to grounding again, drinking water, grounding. Great. Okay, so I'm putting some links in the description. My pleasure. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'm putting links in the description. Just reach out to me, info@radicalcounselor.com, or just my normal Gmail, radicalcounselor@gmail.com, or via my website, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just reach out to me if you have questions. If you can't reach me, just email me again. Sometimes it goes into spam, etc. Try the website if the email doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But usually I get your messages and I'm glad to respond. Very thoughtful questions tonight. Great call. I just want to read this really quickly. Ava just said something interesting. It seems there's a lot of negativity in the West about, quote, mental illness, but not seen this way in some other cultures. Thinking of some writings, Native Americans' perspectives on different perceptions. Thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. That's the whole thing is in the West, we really label a lot of mental states and feelings as being illnesses that traditionally were not necessarily labeled that way. In my opinion, we play into the illness a lot of the time by doing that, as opposed to accepting it more. So that's a great point. And that totally ties into everything we were just talking about in terms of suggestion and Coué and all that stuff. All right, guys, it's been a pleasure. Any questions, let me know. Until next time, enjoy yourself. You are enough. And yeah, feel free to practice that grounding exercise. It tends to help. See you guys later. Bye.